House to Home, brought to you by RE/MAX Diamond Realty.
All right, everybody, we are talking real estate, and one of my favorite people in the world, Liz from RE/MAX Diamond Realty, is here. Hafa once again.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Okay, so tonight's topic is Homeowners Association. Many communities on Guam, many neighborhoods and many residential buildings have them. Some do not. Mine does not.
Right.
I live in a big condo complex and everything, but how much do they permeate the Guam real estate market right now?
Well, different neighborhoods, like a condo complex, like Royal Gardens, for example, they have a homeowners association. So basically, the homeowners association handle the maintenance of the neighborhood. They do have rules and guidelines. So, for example, if the neighborhood does not allow for pets, then you as a landlord are responsible to make sure your tenants do not have a pet. Otherwise, you would be penalized for bringing a pet on the premises. So the homeowners pretty much put together rules, guidelines, you know, use of the pool, the use of the barbecue areas.
It's like a self-governing body?
Yes, yes, and they meet every month practically, or it depends on each organization. Sometimes they meet every month or every quarter. And then they do have their officers. They do have a managing team that take care of, you know, making sure that the operations go smooth and that there are no violations. If there are any violations, they notify each of the tenants or the homeowner that's occupying the unit. Now, if you're a landlord, what does that mean for you as a landlord? So, for example, if you have a tenant and they've violated some of the rules, of course, you would get the letter. And if there's any penalties imposed, it will come to you as the landlord. So it's up to the landlord to make sure the tenant follows and abides by the rules.
And typically you do that by penalties tacked onto rent? Or?
Depending on the rules and guidelines, sometimes they would just send you a letter and say, you violated, and they'll cite the policy. And house rules, they'll say, you violated this and there is a $500 penalty, therefore this amount is due. So condos, even housing complex like Villa Carmen, for example, Talaverde, those all have homeowners associations and their rules and guidelines that all the occupants in the neighborhood have to comply with.
Now, how easy is it to get into a position of leadership on a homeowners association? Is it just, you know, is it easier if you just know somebody? Or, I mean, because you could be a very experienced business person, an educator, an administrator, and you've got like a lot of organizational leadership, but you're new to the neighborhood, or, you know, do you have to live there for X number of years?
What I usually tell owners, if you own in a particular neighborhood and you want to have a say in how things are governed in the homeowners association, best thing to do is go to the meetings, attend, orient yourself with the rules, the guidelines, and every year there's a election of officers for the board, and at that point you can always run. Now, not too many people want to run for the board because it does mean work. Just because you're on the board, it doesn't mean you just pop in for the meeting.
It honestly sounds like a lot more work than when we started this
They usually
conversation.
assign to each of the board members a committee, and depending on Parazacus, for example, they have like the landscaping committee, they have the finance committee, they have different committees. So you can only run for election if you own a condo or unit in that complex or a home.
That does sound like quite a bit of work.
It is.
Now, it also sounds like, you know, this is the behavior is fairly universal across neighborhoods and everything. So is there a standards body that maintains this, or do you have to get certified to be a member?
No, I mean, homeowners associations, usually what they do is there's a governing body, which are the board members, and then they may manage the property themselves by hiring a property manager, and depending how big that project is, or they might engage a property management company to run the operations of the management.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
Yes, it is. And whenever they meet, they talk about finances, they talk about budgets. They have to adhere by their budgetary constraints as well.
Yes, so if they govern the day-to-day operations of the neighborhood, who governs the homeowners association?
Well, the board itself. The board is the governing body. And of course, homeowners and individuals can come in and attend the meetings. But in order to attend the meeting, they have to be an owner within that particular neighborhood. They can attend the meetings, they have input, they have feedback, they can suggest things, but basically it is the board that makes the decisions.
This also sounds like something that people can do maybe when they're in their later years, or when they're not working so much at their primary job, maybe like a nice retirement.
That's right.
Yeah.
I've served on some of the boards, but it does mean work. It means you have to dedicate your time to go, just as any nonprofit organization out there.
All right. Well, before we go, we do have one of our viewer questions, because we've been soliciting feedback and we want to make sure that everybody get on Facebook and ask Liz and Gina a question. They will dutifully answer your question. So here is this week's question. You ready? Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. How does solar technology affect the overall cost and value of my property if I try to sell it, either for residential or business use? And a lot of people are doing solar these days.
Right, I know there's some contracts out there. So for example, if you're an owner and you're trying to get a tenant, people look at solar as a way to save money. So for example, if you have a solar mechanism installed in your building, it means lower power bills. And of course, if you have lower power bills, people will gravitate to that as long as there's little or no maintenance involved. And of course, the landlord is responsible for that. I do know that every year when the tax credits come out, usually there's a new policy within the federal guidelines to say if you've done A, B, C, D, you could claim for a credit with your taxes. So again, that changes from year to year. So that, could be one plus for an owner, a landlord. But as a tenant, it just means less power bills. I mean, our power bills keep rising, and we're trying to find ways to economize. I mean, like the water heater, for example, a lot of people I advise, turn on your water heater 50 minutes prior to showers and dishes, and then shut it down so that it doesn't,
I still do that to this day, if you believe it, yeah.
Yes.
No, pretty interesting. So it sounds like a win overall, and as you and Gina have been educating us, if you are in the market of trying to sell property, it's just another way to differentiate your property, make it more attractive.
It just makes it more attractive, yes.
All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it as always. All right, stay tuned, everybody. We are back right after this.